Welcome to HR.com Live. This podcast is produced by HR.com, the #1 destination to help 1.7 million HR executives maximize human potential and drive extraordinary business results.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to HR.com Live. My name is Dr. Heidi Scott and I'm the Chief Learning Officer here at HR.com. And I get the pleasure of making sure that our learning ecosystem stays innovative so that we can help and equip HR professionals everywhere with the tools they need to learn, lead, and navigate their careers. I'll be your host today. And on this episode of Learning and the New HR Leader, we get to talk with Megan Torrance. And we're going to be talking about XAPI and the role it plays today, as well as tomorrow in our HR systems. So Megan is a CEO and founder of Torrance Learning, which helps organizations connect strategy to design, development, data, and ultimately performance. She has over 25 years of experience in learning design, deployment, and consulting, and she and her team at Torrance Learning are passionate about sharing what works in learning. So they devote considerable time to teaching and sharing about agile project management for learning experience design and XAPI, which we're going to learn more about here in just a bit. Torrance Learning also hosts the XAPI Learning Cohort, which is a free virtual 12-week learning by doing opportunity where teams form on the fly and create proof of concept XAPI projects. We're going to hear a little bit about that as well, because I'm curious. I'm sure you are as well. She's a graduate of Cornell University with a degree in communication and an MBA. And she's also a facilitator there in the women's leadership curriculum. She lives and works in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Megan, thanks so much for taking the time to be with us today. And I share your passion about continually discovering ways to help learners be able to do their work better as a result of their learning, which just, how did that come to be part of who you are?
Oh, my family is full of people who just implicitly, when they learn something, they start teaching it. So that's something that, one of my grandmothers used. Every time she learned something, she would then turn around and start offering lessons on how to do it. So I'm pretty sure that comes naturally from me. So
your grandmother was ahead of time, and you just took her skills, and now it's all being done leveraging technology.
It all just seems natural, yes. And I'm a huge fan of technology and a fun place to play.
So you mentioned, and I know your passion is around XAPI, but can you distill this down to really simple layman terms? Because some of our viewers and listeners may have tuned in because they heard your name and thought, hey, I like what she's written, I like what she stands for, I want to learn with her, want to see what's going on. But there are others who may be thinking, I just need some ABCs around XAPI, or they could be thinking, what is this and why should I care? So give us just the crystal clear, like, what are we talking about?
Yeah, let's do that. So and I realize there's a segment of the people who listen to this who are all about learning management systems and the learning ecosystem, and a segment that are more on the HR side of things. And so there's some differences there, right? In the learning space, right? You said ABCs and XAPI. I'll give you another one, SCORM. SCORM, which is SCORM, has been the global standard for about 20 years of how e-learning courses talk to their learning management systems. And the beautiful thing is that we've all taken courses in learning management systems that use SCORM and never had to worry about it, right? Because it works. What it means is that every e-learning course that follows the specification can go into any learning management system that uses this specification. And quite honestly, if you're not using SCORM, in a corporate LMS space or learning management system space, you're using SCORM, right? You may not know it, but you're probably using SCORM. So what that means is that it is two things for the industry, right? It means that buyers, organizations, can buy from any provider of content. They can use any e-learning authoring tool that makes sense for them, and they can buy any learning management system, and the entire system plugs and plays just fine, mostly, right? There are little tiny things around the edges but it plugs and plays globally, right? What it also means for the providers of services and software is that it's an incredibly level playing field with no barriers to entry. So with a laptop and $1,200 worth of software, anybody, anywhere, can start building e-learning that works in the Fortune 100's learning management systems. So it's a fabulous thing for us, but part of its success has been that it has been a very narrowly focused thing. It works on e-learning, one at a time, in a learning management system while you are connected to the internet, and it only keeps track of about 5 interesting things, right? So it's very, very limited. Right? XAPI then, well, actually I'll back up, which may mean, right, a huge hunk of people in the HR space who deal with recruiting or mentoring or leadership development have no idea what SCORM is, right? Because they don't have to. There are also a ton of other really cool tools that you use, that we all use, that because they don't live in a learning management system or have a concept of completion, like performance support or reminder tools or those mentoring, right? Those kinds of things have never used SCORM or needed SCORM, and all the data about those concepts are stored in separate systems. So now I've got like silos of systems, right? Silos of information about something based on system, not based on what topic it is. So that's kind of where we start, right? XAPI then says, learning happens in more places than just a learning management system in an e-learning course. Surprise. So learning's happening everywhere in all sorts of different modalities. And, right, we've always been trying to measure how does learning impact performance, or which learning has the best impact on performance. But we're not tracking any data about performance. So that's incredibly difficult to actually match those up with without a whole lot of somersaults in your data. So XAPI, and the X stands for experience, keeps track of learning experiences and performance experiences using a shared data structure so that we can be using analytics on all of the pieces of how people perform and learn on the job at once.
So when it comes to this interoperability, what does that mean to our data?
So there's a couple things that it means, right? So interoperability means that I can still go from any vendor, any tool, any platform, and still use, just like with SCORM, I should be able to still use all of those pieces. Now, XAPI is still working on some of the kinks, or we're still working as an industry on some of the kinks and making that happen. And here's the funny thing, right? The magic of XAPI is not the technology. The magic of XAPI is in the agreement of an entire industry to follow the same rules of grammar and to talk about data in the same way.
So
right?
tell me this, that's exciting, but also a little bit scary. I mean, you got to be thinking like, okay, what's the timeline? We're hearing you say, hey, this is coming and it's going to be really cool if everyone gets on board. When can we expect kind of the shift and getting on board, and what does that mean to HR professionals?
That's a good question, right? Because the shift is coming, and it's coming faster and faster. So XAPI has actually been released since 2013. So as of today, it's almost 7 years old. And where XAPI has the most stability from a vocabulary perspective, we call it a profile, right? A data profile, happens to be in the e-learning and LMS space because it's data that we know what to look for. There are several profiles, like there's a video profile because we kind of know the things that are going to happen in a video. So we've agreed on, as a community, and this is all open source, right? As a community, we have agreed on what kinds of data we're going to track about video. As we start bringing on more and more systems and concepts into this space, this will start getting a lot of traction. Here's the cool thing. Any e-learning developer right now, globally, probably has a license already installed on their computer for a tool that will publish an XAPI. So
can you give us some big names there so that people can get familiar with, like,
sure,
that's something we use?
Yeah. So Articulate Storyline and Adobe Captivate, both out of the box, do some basic, and I'd say really basic, XAPI. So they basically do all of the SCORM stuff in XAPI format. Now, Domino, Lectora, Smart Builder allow you to assemble other things, right? And without any code, without any code, send much richer XAPI data. So not just did I complete the course and how long did it take me and how did I answer questions, but what did I drag and drop? What text did I enter? What did I select and then decide, no, I'm not going to select that. I'm actually going to change my mind, right? So those kinds of things. You can do those in Captivate and Storyline, but it requires some JavaScript. Right? And in fact, my team made a tool because we were frustrated that it required JavaScript. We made a tool called XAPI that is like the JavaScript generator widget for you to make that easy. Because my personal impression is that XAPI won't get mass adoption until it's geek-free. For most of the things that we need to do, it needs to be geek-free. So geek-free out of the box, Domino, Smart Builder, Lectora, geek-free, and if I were to grab the top 5, right? Requires a little bit of geekiness or just basic stuff you're going to get out of your Storyline and the Captivate. When I did some research last summer with the eLearning Guild on the state of XAPI adoption, we found very few people were actually using XAPI. We're talking 10 to 15% range in actual production projects out to actual employees, right? There's another 15% who are doing experiments. Right? They are actually prototyping through the XAPI cohort or on their own. They're actually doing experiments and getting ready. 45% of the people who responded to our survey knew about XAPI and were interested but haven't started yet. And of them, 2/3 said they will be using XAPI within the next 3 years. So that's where it's coming. People will start probably with e-learning, but then there are all sorts of post-course reinforcement tools, performance support tools, additional add-on and ancillary kind of learning tools that use XAPI. And a great example is Flip. Flip is a mobile flashcard-based microlearning app, and it sends XAPI data, right? And so we're starting to then reach outside of the learning space. My hope is that the HR space and then the performance space also comes along. Otherwise, we have some little bit of data manipulation to do to get it there.
Yeah. Well, when you think about HR systems, talk to us a little bit about that. How can an HR professional, maybe there's someone that's listening or watching this show who's, maybe they're not in the learning space, but they're more in this HR system space. What do they need to be aware of and how do they prepare for what's coming?
Sure thing. So here's the thing, right? Whether you're in the HR space or the learning space, right? We all have the same goal. We want people to be effective on the job. And in order to know, are they effective on the job? How do we get them effective on the job? Are they on pace to being more effective on the job, right? We all need data. And we actually need much of the same data, right? We just deal with people, right? Different parts of people. If what we can do is have all of those pieces starting to use the same data and understanding there is actually a data specification that allows us to normalize all this data and report it from one spot, then we can be moving that way. So here's the thing, right? XAPI isn't technically difficult. When somebody starts a new project and they also need to start say you're building a new piece of software to do a new thing, or you're getting a new piece of software to do a new thing in your company, right? You can either take the effort to make up a data model yourself, or you could adopt one that already exists that's going to make it more easy to plug and play later on.
So it's having a little bit of foresight would be a smart thing to do. What about for folks who they're sitting here and they're thinking, I'm not the geeky person. I don't know how to do this. We mentioned when I introduced you that you offer this 12-week free workshop where people get to learn, but then also build some, jumping on a team and create kind of a proof of concept XAPI project. That sounds great, but what if they're listening, they're like, yeah, I'm not that person. What do they do?
So here's the cool thing about the learning cohort, right? So we run it twice a year. Like I said, it's completely free. It's 12 weeks long. And we run them spring and fall semester. So the next one will start up in September. So we start September and January each year. The XAPI cohort is pretty awesome. Hundreds of people sign up, like 500 or 600 people on average for the last 5 cohorts. And we've been doing this now 10 times since 2015. So in the cohort, there are a couple of ways to engage, more than a couple, right? Some people just show up for the web sessions. So there's a weekly 1 hour web session. We have a guest speaker, and then people kind of report in. And so that's a great way to just kind of get the skim level education, get some case studies, see what could be possible. And many people, that is as far as they go, and it's as far as they need to go. Right? There are some people who want to dive in and do a project. So we have a Slack channel. There are over 2,000 people in the Slack channel now for just kind of that. We just keep it open from cohort to cohort. It is everything from people who helped build XAPI, the specification, to product vendors, to consultants, to people who are doing it in organizations, to people who don't know that the X stands for experience. So it's all levels of experience with XAPI. And what I love is a project team will get, formed, and there'll be some people who have a great idea and don't know how to make it happen. And there'll be some people who are like, I want to do the code, but I have no idea what you learning people want to do. What would be relevant, right? Those two people get together and they get to learn something. So it's incredible. There are teams who are using, this cohort, there's a project team using Smart Builder to see, right, what data do I get out of Smart Builder? There are 2 teams, I think, using Storyline. One focused on making Storyline create basically a performance checklist, and leveraging some of the LMS and the e-learning connections to make that happen. It's pretty awesome. And it's actually an adaptive performance checklist. So wow. It's just blowing my mind. There are teams using Alexa. There are teams using Pebble ebooks. Also teams using Captivate, all sorts of things going on. And it's so exciting to see what people come up with. Some people are using like Unity 3D and making basically object libraries for other people.
Wow. I know I have a very, I call her the smarty pants friend. Everyone's got a smarty pants friend. And she actually told me about, she was in one of your cohorts a year or 2 back, and she was just like, oh, but she's a blessed geek. And I just adore those folks because, there are those of us that we're not in the weeds when it comes to technology. So we need friends. So
we need friends. Yeah. In fact, when an organization comes to me, I know an organization is ready to use XAPI when they come to me and they have the learning team, the HR team, the IT team, and then the functional team for whatever they're building. And I've had companies come to, like, everybody's on the call together and we say, how are we going to do this? Like, I don't know how we're going to do, right? Your specific problem, your specific situation, but you are already set up for success because you have everybody you need in the room right now, which is amazing.
Yeah, no, that's huge. Hey, so tell us, obviously you're a learning nerd, like me and probably most people on this video cast. What are you reading, and what do I want on my bookshelf that you have on yours?
So I am right now, I will confess, I'm the kind of person, I pick up a book, I read about 3/4 of it, and then I set it down. So at least I know where the ending is coming, right? Yeah. So right now I'm actually in the middle of reading Fully Compliant by Travis Waugh on really, right, because everybody groans when they have to take compliance training, right? And the reason why we do compliance training is because we want to change behavior, and we want to be doing the right thing. So his book is fabulous. And then as soon as I get to the point where I'm about 3/4 done and I'm going to set it down, sorry, Travis, then I'm picking up the Big Book of Dashboards, which looks fabulously geeky. And it's thick. It's a big book. It weighs a ton. It is like a college textbook weight kind of thing. So I'm looking forward to getting
satisfy the nerd in you, I'm sure.
Yes.
So tell us, you back in the fall at DevLearn, you were given a big award. Can you just showcase, just brag just for a smidge? What was that grand award that you took away?
Oh, okay. Yes. So that was the eLearning Guild's Guildmaster, which was, sorry, you can get me by call. That was really, really exciting. There's such a powerful community that we've built around between XAPI Cohort, the project management training that we do, and really helping other professionals do their jobs better. And so that was a recognition of that, which admittedly is really not just for me, it's our whole team, and then everybody
Yes.
who's been a part of that. So
Yeah.
our cohort, right, we're now in our 10th cohort. We've had 4 cohort hosts. And we keep joking, we're passing it along like the next Doctor Who. And so it's a really strong community and a fabulous, fabulous place to learn and get questions answered. It's really neat.
Well, thank you. And then you had your own book that came out, August, September, Agile Management Project. Help me out here. Instructional Design, Agile, the Llama.
Yeah, it's Agile for Instructional Designers, which we call LLAMA, which stands for a lot like Agile Management approach. And so yeah, the book has been super popular, super exciting. And
I'll put a plug in on that one and say I recommend that people get that, because you've done a really nice job of making things simple and applicable.
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, everyone, thanks for taking the time to be with us today. And Megan, thanks for taking your time to share your experience and insights with us. Don't forget to check out our archive webcast at HR.com. And we release new episodes each week so you can stay up to date on all things HR. Have a great day. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to HR.com Live. We have new episodes daily to help you maximize your potential. Be sure to check out our archives on HR.com and share it with your friends. Cheers.